Hi everybody, I'm sitting here with Kosta Makreas and I have 3 questions for you, Kosta.
Thank you. I have 3 answers.
Excellent. So my first question for you is, what advice do you have for people who are new to ET contact?
Primarily, no matter what protocol, and there are many out there for people who want to make contact, human initiated, and then do interactive contact, there are many protocols. But I would say, to my way of thinking, that the core, no matter what kind of protocol you're using, is to have in your heart goodwill, peace, a loving intention to make the contact, and a clear and intelligent mind, because it's also mind visualization, but with heart. I believe that successful contact of a positive kind happens when that's where you start from, because you naturally then attract the the kind of star people, and they like to be called star people, even though I and others do say ET. But the star people who also match your loving vibration are able to detect it when a newcomer or even a veteran is approaching them and offering them an open, loving, peaceful, harmless channel to have communication. I would say that think of this as meeting a neighbor that, not a neighbor, or maybe a traveler that's come from across the waters. How would you treat a person that you don't know yet? You know, how would you greet them? What hospitality would you have? Our cosmic visitors, our cosmic families, can be thought of in that way. They have asked us to think of them, as a matter of fact, as elder brothers, sisters, and cousins. So I would approach a new cousin or a long lost brother, long lost sister, in that friendly, open, harmless, let's talk kind of way. Let's get to know each other. And that would be my best advice, no matter what kind of protocol. There are protocols that can involve whatever people feel raises their vibration. People can do ritual, dance, beautiful music. Of course, there's meditation. We use our consciousness to make the contact, and other people use tones and other technical and technological things. But you know, when you strip all that away, I would say that the major thing is start here with the main instrument that you have. The main technology is heart technology. You know, if you have that open heart and are welcoming and come in love, they will match that. And I think you'll have a really great experience.
Thank you, that is awesome advice. So my second question is, what does your average CE5 look like?
Wow, some are they're not always average. Some are quite exciting and some are kind of silent. But I understand what the question means. What could a typical CE5 look like? What might you expect? Well, for starters, whether you're alone or with a group, uh, the things that you could expect are, if you do the reaching out that I talked about with an openness and an invitation and a quiet mind, to have a communication, we do get communication in average CE5s. The cool thing about having a group is that different members in a group will have different abilities. Some might be psychically open in certain ways, others might be good transmitters telepathically or good receivers, and so on and so on. None of us are all alike, except we have the similar intention when we come together as a group. And the intention is to make this peaceful contact that we know we can make. So in an average CE5, um, you will get a creative way of the communication is done with each person. Let me just say, for example, someone who's a very good lucid dreamer may not have contact in the moment as the group is together and gathering under the stars or in a living room, but later on they may have an incredible dream where star people have found a channel, while their conscious mind is not in the way, to contact them that way. Other people in the group may be in the moment real good feelers. They may get waves of loving energy that comes into their aura. So a CE5, a typical one, can have that. There are always also sightings in the sky. Those are not always necessary to see the lights in the sky, but we know from from experience that it's wonderful to see that, because it kind of bonds everybody. We all have eyes and visual ways to blend together. And when something happens in the sky and that everyone's attuned to, we'll all see the same thing, and it sparks a lot of good discussion. So in a typical CE5, if you're doing it outside, that can also happen. There can also be electronic phenomenon, electrical phenomena. It's been known that smartphones, for example, that were turned off, powered off, will suddenly turn on after we do our contact protocols. They'll just turn on, and they'll play some kind of song that has, say, a cosmic theme from an artist you haven't played in years, whose song you've had in your playlist, but it starts blasting out, and nobody's touched the power cord, nobody's even touched the phone because it's over there. So things like that have happened. What I like to tell people is that our star friends have very creative ways of contacting us. So in a typical CE5, you can expect that different ways will be found. And again, it's because we as humans have different abilities, and what one can see, another one can hear instead. What one can dream, another one maybe gets a touch on the shoulder instead. So I tell people to be open during a typical CE5 to the reception of the many creative ways that this contact can come, because it will. If you're just looking for one thing or one way, just a light in the sky, you may be missing something going on around you or inside of you in your environment that is the actual communication while you're looking over here. So I tell people in a typical CE5 to be aware of your own particular mode of how you might receive information, but be open-minded too, because something new may show up that is a clear communication that you didn't expect. And believe me, that delights people when that happens, something new. And anyway, that's a fairly typical thing, a typical CE5.
Yeah, and that's great. I love that answer because it really speaks to the variety of people and also the variety of contact. So really, this is open to anybody.
That's right. We like to say that we are everyday people doing, or I should say ordinary people, and not to demean any of us, but we're everyday, ordinary kind of people doing extraordinary things. This idea that we can do human-initiated contact is relatively new and exciting for those who have that open mind and that open heart and are willing to experiment, and they can find like-minded friends. The rewards will be there because the contact will come, maybe not the first time, but after repeated heartfelt attempts, a way will be found to get your attention and establish a communication.
My last question is, what's your story?
My story starts out very conventional. I was born in the Midwest in Indiana, and this was in my formative years were in the 60s and 70s as a young person and a teenager. And during those years, in the 60s particularly, I was drawn to space in so many different ways. The NASA programs of the day, the Mercury, the Gemini, the Apollo programs, captivated the world for obvious reasons, the moonshots and all that. So we were all affected by that. And if you were someone like me, I was all over that. I also loved science fiction, so my imagination was fueled by the great writers of the day that were providing that. And I also had a telescope in my backyard in Indiana. And when the weather was clear, even on cold winter nights, especially on good cold winter nights when the weather can be clear, I would be out and looking at the stars and feeling a certain tug, like I would love to be out there. And by the way, when I say that kind of thing, that is repeated by so many people who come into this ET Star People contact movement, that they had some kind of a connection, a fascination with space, with science fiction, with the stars, whatever, that had them, looking up and wondering about the wonders of the universe and the vast mysteries there that awaited us. So that's my story too. I was that kid that just felt awe and wonder and wanted to be out there. And so I grabbed all the things around me in my earthly environment that could get me close to that, whether it was a good science fiction book or making a scrapbook about the NASA moonshots or getting out with my telescope. I found ways to connect. Now, I picked up my first UFO book. I might have been 10 or 11, and back in those days, there the internet was not around, and the great interest in UFOs was not what it is today. I mean, it has grown dramatically. I've seen it in my lifetime. So back then, there was not as much literature, but there were the contactee movements of the 50s that were a real thing before a lot of suppression started. So people were writing books, and I found one of those, and it was my first UFO book, which had a lot of classic black and white pictures of the classic saucer shape with a dome top there. And in the days before Photoshop and all this electronic manipulation of digital images, ordinary people who were taking these were not able to be faking them the way that a lot of people are faking them today in the middle of all the genuine ones. So back then I knew this was real, and it captivated me right away. I go, this is cool. I want to see one. But the truth is, I went on to have a conventional life. I kind of dropped the interest. I went to school, to university, got a degree in computer science and a minor in mathematics, and went out west to California, got married, had 2 children, divorced, and got remarried. And that's what I mean by conventional life. And I was a software engineer in the Silicon Valley, where I had a very left-brained, successful career as an independent consultant in the Silicon Valley, which was wonderful. Keeps you really grounded, keeps you very much in the scientific, skeptical mode, which I think is a good thing, as long as you keep an open mind and heart and are willing to change your mind when you see evidence. So that was the conventional part. In 2006, all that changed in an afternoon, where I sat down on the internet, was a little bit bored, and I made the mistake. I wouldn't say made the mistake, because it was like drinking from a fire hose, but actually this was a positive thing. I just Googled UFO or something, and then all this information in 2006 just came out. There were, this was, 40 years later from when I picked up my first book. Suddenly it's all over the internet, and it's like, what do you believe? Who has time to look at everything? But I did discover a group of people who, near the town where I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area, announced that they would go out for a week and make contact, human-initiated contact, with UFOs. And that was really life-changing, odd, and cool. And so I said to my wife then, and now, it's to Hollis, I want to do this. You want to come with me for a week and experiment with meditation and consciousness and contact these visitors? I really believe they're here, and now we're being offered an opportunity to actually initiate contact with them. So it sounded like it was cool. And a little bit of me was afraid, because again, I had grown up with science fiction and with Hollywood movies, where star people are generally portrayed as evil aliens here to eat us, serving humanity, take our women, take our whatever. I mean, just always do bad things, right? So a little part of me had been programmed for many years with that, but the greater part would just felt this tug that I had felt as a young man looking at the stars going, oh my God, this is an opportunity for me now in a new way that I never thought of as a kid, with my consciousness and heart, to make that connection. Let's see what happens. So my wife said to me, I believe they're here. I totally believe it. It's a big universe, and I believe they're visiting the Earth, but I don't see what it has to do with my everyday life. I have a business to run and bills to pay, like I did too. And she said, go have a good time. I support you, and I'll be here at home. So long story short, during the week I was up there, I had 2 experiences that literally did change my life, because I could not have imagined when I got out of college that I would be doing what I'm doing now, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But during that week, to make a long story short, our group was using these protocols to make contact, and we were seeing what we knew were starship, intelligent beings in the sky communicating back at us. We learned how to identify what are satellites, what are planets, what are stars, what are the known things that should be there, airplanes, etc. And then what's left over was of wonder, because when you would see some of these lights changing directions and zigzagging and responding to your thought, or to a light source that you would blink at them, they would respond back. You do 3 times, they would do 3 times, and they're zigzagging in the sky. All that kind of stuff was happening during that week. And every morning, after the previous evening of doing that kind of contact, I would call my wife back home and describe to her what I'd seen. This was all very fresh and new, and I was full of enthusiasm. And along, I think about the 4th morning, she stopped me and said, "I've got a story for you." And my first thought was, what could be more exciting than what I'm about to tell you? This is all about me. No, I'm teasing, of course, but I did think, okay, this has got to be good, because she knows what I'm going to say, and if she's going to say something first, this has got to be good. Well, it was. And again, a long story short, she had 4, maybe 5 small bipedal beings appear in our bedroom at night just before she was going to bed, and had turned the lights out at the foot of our bed with her physical eyes. Totally full waking consciousness. Large heads, large eyes, thin bodies. Couldn't see their feet because the edge of the bed obscured them. So they weren't just imagination, because she really couldn't see the rest of their body because of the physical edge of the bed. So they must have been in a physical vibration of some sort to be occluded that way, to be hidden that way by something physical. Anyway, she had an interaction with them. They asked her, "Who are you?" in a very sweet way in her mind. And she said she felt waves of love coming off of them. And though she could not be afraid, she was startled. And she asked them questions like, "Where are you from?" And in her mind, the syllables Arcturus formed. So then they kind of faded away. Actually, the funny thing is, these days, as awestruck as she was, she would have another question to ask besides, "Where are you from?" And her question would be, "How did you get here?" And I get that. She's an engineer, so that makes sense. But it happened the way that it did. It changed her life, and I think in another presentation of this sort on this YouTube channel, or wherever this winds up on whatever platform, her story from her point of view of this particular encounter I'm describing is also told, and in her first person. But my jaw dropped, and I said, yeah, I can't top that one right now. So that changed my life. And there's one more thing that happened that week that just kind of sealed it. One evening after our group had broken up and half the people were getting in their cars and going home, we were at the foot of Mount Shasta, in a forested area. There's lots of trees there, and an open area where we had done our contact. And like I said, people were driving away. And I would say about 9 or 10 of us still hung around. We were talking, and it was midnight-ish. And someone tugged on my sleeve in those moments as I'm just chatting and said, "Look over there." I kind of turned my head and looked, I don't know, maybe 6, 8 feet away. And there, materializing in the air, was a sphere which might have been 4, 5, 6 feet in diameter, just kind of coming and fading out of the blackness there. And I'm rubbing my eyes going, what am I seeing? Is it shadows? So of course I'm looking around going, is this the play of a little bit of moonlight that there was? Is it shadows? Is it whatever? But no, it was a sphere, and it was opaque. Couldn't see inside. And it came and became, I won't say completely material, but it was definitely there. It did not belong there naturally. And when all of us saw it materialize that way, it floated above the ground. I don't recall there was any noise. There was no wind. There was no other phenomena associated with it. It was just there silently. And one of the people in our circle there, as we're sitting there awestruck, spoke up and said, "I just got a telepathic message from the beings inside of this thing." And they told me that they're scientists who are here to discuss and to research the human energy system. So I thought to myself, great, we're somebody's PhD thesis. We're like the field trip where they're doing their research. That's cool. That got them here, right? And I'm sure that it's all harmless. I mean, if they had wanted to hurt us in that moment, we were defenseless. But none of that happened. This was all very amazing, like WTF moments, I came here and I was getting ready to go home, and suddenly there's this thing that just broke all the laws of physics I was taught by appearing out of nowhere, and then we're getting messages. Well, the story gets better because the woman, as close to me as my friend Celia is here, was standing like this, very straight like a board with her arms out, not moving for about a half an hour while this sphere was visible and while we were all talking in hushed tones around it. And actually, I even thought of going up and trying to touch it because I could have walked over, and some part of me said, you know, you don't know what you're dealing with here. It might look harmless, but don't mess with it. Just be happy that you're getting the visual, right, and getting a little bit of the story from the people inside. So I refrained from actually touching anything. Okay, so my friend next to me, as she's standing there for half an hour, I knew something was going on with her, and I didn't want to interrupt it. But I stayed close enough to her, as I am here, just in case she showed any signs of distress, I could grab her, whatever, and help her. But she did for that half hour. The rest of us just stood around. Nobody took a picture. I didn't have a camera, but nobody took a picture. Or if they did, I don't remember it and I don't know it. That maybe that is floating around somewhere. You know, this was 13 years ago. But my friend is standing there. And after about that half hour, she just starts doing this. And I grab her by the shoulders and steady her. I say her name. I ask her how many fingers, kind of thing, you know, like, do you know where you are? And she kind of stammered and was a little disoriented, but she said, you know, I'm basically fine. And I said, what happened? And she told me the story, which she relayed to the rest of the group the following afternoon when we had a group circle of sharing. But in that moment, I got the full story from her. And she said that while standing there with me, and she's a good psychic, so she got a psychic message from one of the scientists inside this sphere, this starcraft basically, and the scientist, he, she, or it, or all of the above, or some combination, we don't know, it doesn't matter, asked her, may I merge with you because I would like to study your energy system. After all, this is what they claimed they were there for. And boy, to her credit, I mean, how many people would have the presence of mind to say, sure? But she's telling me, she said, okay, you can. But I have 3 conditions. And those conditions are, number 1, I stay conscious during the whole encounter. I just don't want to just go away while you're like merging with my body. And the being said, okay, agreed. 2, she said, you leave when I tell you to leave. And the being agreed to that. And number 3, don't mess with the sex equipment. I don't want any probes and no funny stuff. She was very clear about that. And the being said, okay, fine. So she laid down the conditions. I mean, what presence of mind is this? You know, like she had a list and not just like a yes, like she had a list and a demand and here's a signed contract, right? Sign it with your words. And that's what was going on during that half hour. Actually, they were merging, or it was merging and studying her. And at the point where I saw her get wobbly was at the point where she tells me she finally said to it telepathically, I'm done, go, please leave now. And it did, respectfully. And then the spaceship just faded into the background like a slow fade like you see in a movie. No drama, no nothing, just faded in, and all you saw again were the leaves of the trees and shrubs and stuff that's in the forest, as if it had never been there. But 9 of us, adults, totally sober, spent half an hour. We were there, we all saw it. And I thought to myself, I want more of this. And this literally was like the icing on the cake after what my wife experienced. Now I had my very first up close and personal encounter. And I've known people all my life that I trust. Good friends who have had flyovers of craft that's their cars stopped. They got a beam going down. They saw the circulating lights. They saw the craft. I mean, it was there. And they had all these romantic encounters, and I believed them. I even have a friend who saw a mothership in the New Mexico desert with 4 other women, and it pulled a tractor beam on it. Nobody got harmed or anything, but this was a full-on sighting, and this woman was casually telling me this story. So I believed her, and therefore that was very cool. But I have to say, for myself, and maybe for some of the people out there watching this, once you have your own encounter, and you're sure that no one's going to talk you out of it, and you're sure of yourself, and you don't question yourself and try to explain it away or whatever, when you get to that point where you say, I know what I saw, this is my story, and ain't nobody going to change it. I had that moment. And I said, I want more of this. And that created another chapter where I started my community, E.T. Let's Talk, and the People's Disclosure Movement, to teach other people how to do this and to connect them to each other so they didn't feel alone, and to do a lot of other wonderful things, which I will talk about in another installment. But that literally changed the road I'm on. Could I have imagined as a young man at 22, actually 24, coming out of college with a degree, ready to head into the conventional work world and have, a pretty normal kind of life? Could I have imagined that I would be now facilitating and founding a community across the globe where thousands of people like me are using these human-initiated contact methods to make their own contact, and for me to be providing them a community where they can talk and share their stories, upload their videos, their pictures, have discussions, support one another? Wouldn't have imagined any of that, but that one week changed it all. And it just goes to show you what life can throw you. Sometimes you get curveballs you don't like. Sometimes you get a curveball and you hit it out of the park. I feel like I hit one out of the park with that, and here I am.
Very cool, Kosta. Thank you for telling us your story. Before we go, can you tell us how to get to E.T. Let's Talk? And does the People's Disclosure Movement have its own? No, it doesn't have its own website, but I'm going to put a link. You can see it right now to the video that Kosta's going to talk about, the People's Disclosure Movement, and then let us know how to get connected to the community.
etletstalk.com is the community. It's our website. We have, I would say, it's actually a higher number now, but it might be close to 25,000 members in more than 100 countries. And the People's Disclosure Movement grew at the same time as that. It's actually bigger than just the E.T. Let's Talk network, because the People's Disclosure Movement includes other networks of people who are doing what we're doing. What I like to say is the People's Disclosure Movement is the largest, most widespread, global, two-way, human-initiated contact with star people that exists on the planet today. And its goals are to have we the people disclose. If you're in the UFO/ET field, or they're called UAPs now, unidentified aerial phenomenon, you don't spend very much time in the field before you hear everyone bandying the term disclosure. When's it going to happen? When's the government going to make that announcement? When's someone else's government? When's the president going to admit what we all know has been covered up by them for decades? So people are all about disclosure, and there's debate. When will it happen? Is it happening over here? Books are sold, speeches are made, videos are made around disclosure, and that's fine for people to inquire and to ask about that and to want it, because they are here and they have been covered up. But the People's Disclosure Movement is different because we the people, by making our own contact, are the ones who are disclosing. We're taking back our power from the governments and the other authoritarian institutions that have up until now held this secret very closely and have lied to us, manipulated the truth, told us we're crazy, and on and on and on, have just suppressed all this. Well, why not bypass all that? If you stop throwing all your chips into the government, then you've given your power to this, whatever the institution is. It might be a church, it might be a group, it might be a government, whatever. Someone who's saying no such thing exists. And yet 3 or 4 friends, or maybe even one friend, who's genuinely seen one. So somebody's wrong about this. In the People's Disclosure Movement, you become the person who has your experience, and eventually you will, if you use the methods, and you will meet up with other people, like at etletstalk.com, who have had the experience and have seen. What I like to say is you go from becoming a believer in this to becoming a knower. And that's not in quotation marks, okay? Believer becomes knower, and then again, nobody can take that away from you. And some people just want to shout it from rooftops, and some find their partners, their family don't want to hear that, and some are open-minded and do. It's amazing when you have your experience and start talking about it, if you're brave enough in your surroundings, that you will discover people who are open-minded and others who pass it off. But that's okay. when you find the open-minded people and you find allies, whether next door to you or in the next state or city, it just builds the whole movement. And the purpose of this People's Disclosure Movement is to someday have so many people who have had their own sighting or contact all over the world. There will be so many of us that at that point we will have all taken our power back, and no government or no other institution or authority can ever again tell us, you didn't see what you saw, you didn't experience what you experienced. Listen to us. We're the ones doling out the truth. Well, how many of you really trust your government? I don't care where you are. If you do, you're lucky. Send them over to us. But bypass all that. Become your own disclosure movement. And so many people like us will have seen that nobody can cover it up again. And there's more to that, because these star civilizations are here for a reason. There are many, what we've discovered through communication with them, many different civilizations from many places who are really concerned about what's going on with the Earth. I don't have to go into great detail about how we're screwing up our world, or how we could just blow it all to bits or pollute it, with global pollution and climate change and all that. There's lots of stuff, lots of ways that a calamitous ending can wipe us off. But we don't focus on that. In this movement, we're allowing for the fact that these civilizations are here because maybe, just maybe, they've gone through the process we have and have overcome their lower natures to evolve spiritually, and this is really a spiritual thing, not a religious thing, to evolve, cooperate with one another, and create stellar civilizations that are wonderful, with many wonders, and then decide to go out among the stars and find others maybe like us who are at this point where we can bust out of the cocoon and become a butterfly, or we can fall off the tree of where we're hanging and be part of the dustbin of cosmic history. I personally believe, very cautiously, not naive, I know what the problems are, but I also know where the strength is, and there are millions of people that are ready for knowing that we do have friends in high places who, for a variety of reasons, cannot openly be among us, and maybe that's the subject of another communication with people. There are reasons. But every day, as we make more contact, we are neutralizing all the energies that are keeping it suppressed and keeping them from fully being with us. And full open contact is what I like to call it. And there's a lot of good that can come from that. A lot of technology they can share, free energy, medical marvels, technologies, social, spiritual things. I mean, they've spent many years evolving and doing it in a very cooperative way that would benefit us at that point. So that's the point of the People's Disclosure Movement, is to cooperate and let them know there's enough of us who are willing to be peaceful human beings, who want to take the next step into a golden age on Earth, and we would like their help too. Now, we got to do all the work, most of the work ourselves. We have fouled our nest here on Earth. We've created problems that we can solve if we put our mind to it, if we have the will. And I think there are enough heart-centered, goodwill people on the planet to take care and solve the problems that we've created. I also believe we've created some problems that are so big and out of control that we need a little help from our friends. And that's what they're willing to offer. In communications that we've received, our star friends have said, think of us not as gods. Don't do that. You've done that in the past, and the History Channel and Ancient Aliens and those places have evidence of where humans have done this in the past. But they tell us now, don't think of us as gods. We are elder brothers, sisters, and cousins. We're family. And just as you would seek the advice of an older, experienced, trusted, older sibling or cousin, male, female, whatever, just in the same way that you would do that in your human world, they are offering us in our cosmic world the ability to reach out to them for the kind of help that they can provide without doing our growing for us, but giving us some guidance, answers to some questions, some assistance in areas where we're overwhelmed. So it's a cooperation, it's a partnership, and that's the way I think of it, and that's the golden age I believe we're working towards. And that's why, with a lot of passion and interest and enthusiasm, I continue to promote ETLetstalk.com and the People's Disclosure Movement, because I think the end is worthwhile. I hope that someday our children's will look back upon this time in history when we're in this point of transition where we can fling to the stars or destroy ourselves. They will look back and say we made the right decisions and we had cosmic partners, because enough of us recognized the opportunity and decided to cooperate with them. And I think this makes them joyous. And they've told us we are ready, but they say humanity's not ready yet. So that's why we ask people to make their own contact, join with the rest of us, become allies, and as a group, it's a group mission, let's work together towards becoming cosmic humanity together and meeting our cosmic family and neighbors and working together to save our planet, our beautiful jewel of a planet that deserves all the effort that we can give it right now. And that's what we feel we're doing in the People's Disclosure Movement. And I thank people for listening to this. And if your heart is open and you want to join and be on the winning team, come to etletstalk.com.
Excellent. I'm putting the links down in the notes below so everybody can go check out the links to ET Let's Talk and also to some of the other videos we'll do with Kosta. It will all be there. Okay, everybody. See you.
Bye.